Dr. Corsi, I think viewers of Crowdsource The Truth and fans of Corsi Nation alike have been watching this Adam Schiff crash and burn Schiff show. How are you today, Doctor?
I'm good, Jason. Great to be with you again and look forward to this. Yeah. And I think we're going to have a good show today. No, I think what we see here is Adam Schiff has failed to make the impeachment case, except in his own mind, of course.
Right.
And I don't see any way, if this is the best case that the Democrats have, it's dead. It's a non-starter. This is never going to be voted on in the Senate for impeachment. You're not going to get a single Republican, I don't think, in the House to vote articles of impeachment out of the House. We've yet got to go through the entire Judiciary Committee. Now the House is going to be, I think, in a week and a half recess.
Oh.
We've got Thanksgiving coming up. We've got Christmas coming up. I mean, it's going to be spilled over. They're going to be, finally having the trial in the Senate, maybe coincident with Election Day. I mean, it's ridiculous.
That's what he wants, isn't it?
I guess, but I would think from the Democrats' point of view that these hearings have been dreadful. I mean, I'm just glad they're over. I mean, only because they're so, mind-numbingly boring. I mean, it's so bad. It reminded me, some of these witnesses today, I'm saying it's like being back at graduate school at Harvard, listening to some lecture from a political science professor reading notes of a book that's never going to be published. Can't even look up for the lectern. It's so deadly boring that you got to take the course, but how am I going to get through this without having 14 cups of coffee before I come in here? It's that bad. I don't see that the audience. I mean, look, just from the optics of it, just take a look at television and how television is done to be entertaining. This is the worst TV I think I've ever seen.
Right.
I mean,
well, but Doctor,
hour
of course,
after hour after hour of
the primary purpose is
dense detail. Yeah.
The primary purpose is not for it to be entertainment, but for it to be an actual hearing. I think the problem that you're identifying that I noticed myself is that it's so brain dead, it's not even remotely engaging to the extent that people would tune in and hold their attention to learn what's going on there.
Well, Jason, I remember, watching the Watergate hearings when they were on, and they were all in black and white at that time. I mean, mostly color was around since, I guess, about 1964 pretty commonly. But even in the 70s, early 70s, most people were watching black and white.
Yeah.
And yet they were spellbinding. People waited every day to hear them, and the testimony was riveting because you were hearing things about crimes and break-ins and bags of cash from the Republican Committee to Reelect the President, which was called CREEP, the Committee to Reelect the President.
Right. Perfect for Nixon. But it shocked the conscience of the nation at the time that a president would be involved in such an underhanded black bag operation.
Right. There were crimes. That's my point. It was captivating because there was criminality.
Right.
And here, there's no crime.
Right.
There's really no crime at all. The idea that President Trump withheld aid, there's nothing in the Constitution that says he has to give aid to anybody. Right. He can withhold it simply because he didn't feel like it that day. And the whole idea that he withheld it in order to get his political opponent, Joe Biden, investigated by Ukraine is nonsense. First of all, this put on the map Joe Biden and his family's corruption in Burisma in Ukraine. But in 2017, I mean, I even pulled it up today. It was mentioned in the hearings, but here is the article in Politico. This was in 2017, January, just 9 days before the inauguration, and Ukrainian efforts to sabotage Trump backfire. Everything going on in the Burisma, all the efforts to get dirt on Paul Manafort, the Alexandria Chalupa, this Democratic operative who worked with the guy who is the whistleblower, Chiarmella. All of this was known. Oh yes, we mentioned the whistleblower. So now
better
we're
not,
now
Doctor.
we're in
We've
YouTube
just
trouble.
got the live streaming back. It really is a topic in and of itself, Doctor. That we're in the United States of America in 2019, and there's an individual who's the primary witness in this matter, whose even the utterance of his name is verboten.
It's because of the lockhold that this mainstream media has had on the narrative in the United States, even though it's just propaganda. It's all this hard left. And by the way, last night, did you see any of the Democratic debate?
I mean, did.
First of all, most people didn't even know it was on.
Right.
I mean, and secondly, with the hearings going on, you would think that this Democratic debate would be supercharged. It also was super boring. I mean, everybody making nice, and you have to switch these things off.
Yeah.
Now, I did watch all the hearings, all of the Schiff hearings, because I've been reporting on them on my own podcast. But I mean, let's just take a look at today. These two witnesses, this Fiona Hill and this David Holmes. I've been writing books. When I wrote Killing the Deep State, I wrote it in 2017, published early in 2018. I would get interviews, and people would say, Dr. Corsi, what is the deep state?
Right.
Like, prove it. Well, today, after all these hearings, seeing these people, these State Department people, come in and self-satisfied, self-impressed, sanctimonious, declaring how they knew Ukraine foreign policy better than Donald Trump, and they should be the ones in charge, and Donald Trump should be impeached because he didn't accept their interagency consensus. Well, first of all, read Article 2 in the Constitution. The president is 100% in control of foreign policy. He does not, the State Department isn't mentioned in the Constitution. But these bureaucrats who determined that they had a policy formulated under Obama, that they wanted to continue, and so therefore Trump didn't want to continue it, so Trump needs to be impeached, it is patently absurd. So my solution, and I've been posting this on Twitter, at Jerome_Corsi, is saying, let's move the bureaucracy out of Washington. Let's put the State Department in the Aleutian Islands. And I've gotten pushback on that, saying it's too pretty in the Aleutian Islands.
Right.
Put them in some.
People have contacted me misinterpreting what you've written on Twitter, telling me that Dr. Corsi is announcing that this is going to happen. I had to let them know that I think it's just your hope that it will happen.
Well, in fact, there are a couple of movements that are going on. Let me see if I can pull them up. I know that the Interior Department is moving offices right now out of D.C., and I've been actually quoting some of these moves that are happening. Trump's Interior Department gives workers.
There we go.
Yeah, they give workers a month to relocate out west or risk getting fired. So that's in the Interior Department. And then there's also some movement, I think, in the, the Interior Department is moving 1 month to move. There's one other department that's moving people out. The USDA, Department of Agriculture, is relocated to Kansas City.
That makes
some
sense.
of its offices. Yeah, and in fact, two senators, GOP senators, Hawley, who's from Missouri, and Marsha Blackburn from Tennessee, they've introduced a bill called the Hire Bill, which would move 90% of the bureaucracy out of D.C. This is real.
Wow.
To put the agriculture in Missouri, education in Tennessee, commerce in Pennsylvania, energy in Kentucky, Health and Human Services in Indiana, housing and urban development in Ohio, Interior in New Mexico, labor in West Virginia, transportation in Michigan, Veterans Affairs in South Carolina. That's actual legislation that was introduced.
Many of those sound like they make sense, Doctor, putting some of those bureaucracies closer to the centers of industry that they're most closely related to.
Well, and see, Jason, the idea is that you've got all these bureaucrats who are in the year after year, administration after administration. These two today, Fiona Hill and David Holmes, said, they've been 3 administrations. They just carry over, and they get very comfortable with the Beltway. Right. They all look at these think tanks to go in and out of. They're affiliated with Georgetown. They're going to seminars. So when you move the State Department to the Aleutian Islands, they're not going to move. It's the only way to get rid of the SES employees that were created under Carter. Those are the special employees that cannot be fired in the bureaucracy. They get special salaries, special perks, and civil service, which are so. But if you move it, like they're saying, you get 30 days and get ready to relocate to, Idaho.
Right.
Well, they're not going to leave the Beltway.
Yep.
So there's a way to get rid of them all and close down some of them, which I would do. So my recommendation is to move them. I want to move the State Department to the Aleutian Islands. I want to move the Department of Justice and the FBI to the Mojave Desert. Now, gotten pushback. People say Death Valley is a better choice. I want to move the IRS to the southernmost point of the United States by McAllen, Texas, where you can fry eggs on the sidewalk in the summer, if there is a sidewalk.
Yep.
And the EPA, the Environmental Protection Act, I'm putting in Dalhart, Texas, which is in the Panhandle. They're going to have a prime location right next to the feedlots.
Yeah,
and if you've ever been near a feedlot,
I got an email from somebody from Dalhart who was very pleased that you're familiar with the area.
Oh, sure. I've driven through Dalhart many, many times, and my way from Kansas into Albuquerque. People forget I lived almost 20 years out west and drove it all in my pickup truck. I've driven every square mile out there in Arizona, and Texas, New Mexico, Colorado.
Corsi driving a
when I was
pickup
young. Oh, yeah, sure. When I was young, I had a diesel pickup truck. It was great fun.
Wow.
And
well, Doctor,
I lived out there for many years. Yeah, go ahead.
Pardon me for interrupting, but I should take a moment to remind everyone that you and I will be starting Dr. Corsi's Prescription for America, our sponsor-exclusive show on patreon.com/Jerome Corsi, patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth, and subscribestar.com/crowdsourcethetruth. That's going to begin at 5 p.m. and we'll be going in depth on some of these topics. I'm glad you brought up the Senior Executive Service, Doctor. I know you may not be fully prepared to address that in today's broadcast, but it's something we should discuss and look into further as it's come up elsewhere. And certainly, speaking for myself, I know I don't know that much about it. There's been a lot of information put out on the internet that's maybe right, maybe wrong. I think you might have a lot to say about it.
I'd be happy to. And also, I've got a couple more developments this week.
Sure.
I've been working with a solution to the border with this TerraBlock, TerraBlock, which is a product done by HESCO, HESCO. You can probably pull it up on the screen if you just look at some of the videos. This is a rapid deployment system of a perimeter defense that's used by the military.
Yeah.
HESCO is a very well-known defense contractor. They put up barriers in floods and other conditions. People recognize them who have done government work. And these barriers, if you take a look at the videos on YouTube, and just put TerraBlock plus HESCO, you can see they're dropped in sequence. You can assemble them. They're backfilled with dirt. They're you can have them. The TerraBlock can be as much as 16 foot tall in the wall portion. You can't climb it because of the mesh. You can't steel mesh. You can't get your fingers in. As spring loaded, you cannot go over it. All smart technology. The videos show a semi being run into the TerraBlock at 50 miles an hour.
That's amazing.
And it absorbs them.
Yeah.
You can just right now Google TerraBlock and HESCO, and you can see them. Well, we have now the proposal is in the White House. We have it even at President Trump's desk and Jared Kushner's office. We have it in the Department of Homeland Security. It's being looked at by the Border Patrol because the point is this TerraBlock, which is rapid deployment, and the military uses it for protection of perimeters, it can be put on the remaining 1,350 miles of unprotected border, much of which is in Texas, by Election Day at a cost of under $1 billion, which President Trump already has in the budget. So we're giving a solution that's a DoD-approved product used around the world. It's also used to protect electric grids. It's a very, very tested product, TerraBlock. And HESCO is a well-known DoD company. It's already GSA approved. And the fact is, these steel barriers that we're putting up in California are going to cost $22 billion to be done. And the most we can do is 6 miles a day, which means, let's just say 1,200 miles. That's 200 days. That's going to be like somewhere around 4 years to do. Wow. It'll never happen. But President Trump, with the money he's already got, can say, let's just put TerraBlock on the border. It can be moved. It's a suite of products that HESCO's got, so you can put it in mountainous terrain. You can safeguard the Rio Grande. We've got a drug war going down with Mexico right now. And, this is a military product that our troops in combat zones are protected by. I think it's good for the border. And the movability of it should also appeal to the Democrats, because if we ever did get comprehensive immigration reform, some of these barriers could be reapplied to other crowd control or other needs. They can be moved, and so we don't have all the land right now secured, private land on the Texas border. We can put the TerraBlock right on the border, and then as we get the rights through eminent domain or other negotiations, we can move them to where they should be on the border. But the movability, the flexibility, I think, is a major aspect. And the announcement is we're making headway. We're getting this known. The government is listening. And I've done a number of radio broadcasts. I've been mentioning it on my decodes on Corsi Nation. And I think we're getting the word out. And so just like my idea to move the State Department, when I do these ideas and come up with them, we get them out there, and pretty soon I hear President Trump talking about them. And I'm kind of on a roll here.
Well, but wait a minute, Doctor. We've got to be conscious because we need to break in order to get to our Patreon show in time for 5.
Can I do one more thing?
Yes.
The bottom line of all the hearings this week are either hearsay testimony. We heard 5 days, endless hours of hearsay testimony. And I guess it was Jim Jordan or one of the Republicans, maybe it was Tim, what's his name, from Ohio, who just destroyed Fiona Hill. She came in and said that she had this paper, Russia did not interfere in the election or whatever. Completely wrong. Hearsay, he blew her up on hearsay. And the big witness, the Sondland, who is a hotel guy, has hotel chains in Portland, Oregon. He was really supporting a Romney supporting a McCain supporter. He did not raise money for Donald Trump. It had his own quid pro quo. He gave $1 million to the inauguration. He got to be ambassador to the EU. And he said, and it really destroyed the entire Democratic argument repeatedly, that he asked President Trump, and Trump said I want nothing from the Ukraine. I want Zelensky to do what he said, clean up the corruptions. So it's now, I think, been established in the hearings that there was Zelensky got the meeting he wanted with Trump in person, that he got the phone call, got the aid was given through, and there was no investigation started of Biden in this period of time at all in Ukraine. So there was no quid pro quo or bribery or extortion, because it didn't happen. And Sondland had to say, and he was asked repeatedly, that President Trump never said anything to him at all. He said no person on the planet ever said that the aid was going to be held up if Zelensky didn't begin an investigation of Biden. The evidence now at the end of this week that the Democrats have is so weak that if they do vote it out, it's going to be clearly partisan. Those in the Democrats in the House who won their seats in red districts are going to be at risk. They're going to go home. They're going to get an earful of this. And if they do take it to the Senate, it's going to be a laugh fest because there is no case here.
Yeah. You've described one of the most compelling parts of the testimony, Doctor. I forget the name of the representative who did it, but it was an expert cross-examination where Holmes was trying to avoid saying what he ultimately got him to say, which is that it was his presumption that the president wanted this quid pro quo, and the guy said, well, that's nothing. Your presumption is not evidence of anything. You just thought that. It's not even hearsay.
Well, the two best were Mike Turner of Ohio and Jim Jordan, and then Stefanik. I mean, these three really starred. and Radcliffe did a great job too. All of them, when they got their limited time for cross-examination, they went right in and destroyed the testimony of these people, saying it was either hearsay or Sondland was the Perry Mason moment of the entire 5 days of hearing, because when Turner, Representative Mike Turner of Ohio, Republican, pressed Sondland had to admit that President Trump told him he wanted nothing, that it was never said that the aid was going to be withheld unless Zelensky began an investigation of Biden. He thought maybe a meeting wouldn't be held. Maybe Zelensky wouldn't get a White House meeting or wouldn't get to see in person with the president if, in fact, he didn't agree to start investigating the corruption. We have a mutual legal assistance treaty with Ukraine. President Trump did not want to spend another $250 million in aid that was going to get stolen. This week also, we have Burisma and its founder indicted in Ukraine for stealing $7 billion. And it's pretty clear that the $3 billion of U.S. aid, $1 billion from Obama, $2 billion in the first 2 years from Trump, is stolen and gone.
Wow.
And Trump had a legitimate reason, saying, unless Zelensky is serious, I'm not throwing more money in Ukraine. I think the Democrats Schiff really crashed and burned. And I think now Nancy Pelosi's got a major political problem in that it's an embarrassment. You had the Mueller failed. You had Nadler fail with Mueller in testimony in the House Judiciary Committee. Schiff has embarrassed himself in front of the nation. It's clear that these Democrats are just out politically. They're over the cliff with the socialist Stalin trial, which was not fair. None of the rules were fair, and they still failed. The Democrats have such a weak case, they couldn't convince the American people on a Stalin trial that anybody was guilty of anything.
And that's why we've got Adam Schiff pictured crashing and burning in a World War II era biplane, or maybe even earlier. I don't know when that biplane is from, but I agree with you, Doctor. He's crashing and burning. We're going to get into even more detail in just under 10 minutes when Dr. Corsi's Prescription for America begins on patreon.com/Jerome Corsi, patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth, and subscribestar.com/crowdsourcethetruth. While we have everyone, for the last moments, Doctor, I do want to remind everyone that they can also watch a simulcast of our YouTube broadcasts on the Jerome Corsi YouTube channel. It's simulcasting there right now. We've got 130 viewers with you, and people can use Super Chat, send the money to the doctor while you're watching the show on Jerome Corsi, the YouTube channel. And Doctor, I'm very pleased to announce that in the effort of fighting back against malicious social engineers, Crowdsource the Truth is now back in action with live streaming. I got the fraudulent complaint overturned, and we have over 430 people joining us right now on the Jason Goodman YouTube channel. So thank you to everyone who stuck with us through that little bump in the road, and thank you to all of our generous Patreon and Subscribestar sponsors. Doctor, I'll see you there in just a few minutes.
Look forward to it, and come join us it'll be on Patreon, Jerome Corsi channel as well, and watch my daily decodes on CorsiNation.com. They're every day analyzing the news. Thank you very much, Jason.
Thank you, Doctor. I'll see you in just a moment.
Look forward to it.